She emailed me not to come, said I should just watch her get married through a computer screen. After everything I sacrificed, that was her solution. So I replied with 4 words, hung up the phone on my old life, and gave her a lesson she'd never forget. My name is Arthur. I'm 81 years old, and I run a small barbershop in a town that time forgot. People come in, they talk. I've heard every story you can imagine. But the one Margaret Collins told me, sitting in that old leather chair one quiet Tuesday afternoon, that one stuck with me. It's a story about a mother, an email, and the revenge that wasn't about fury but about freedom. Let me tell you how it went. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 59 years old, a widow, and I live in Oregon. I've worked as an office manager at a law firm for 18 years. Last Tuesday, I got an email from my daughter, Emily. No subject line, just her name. My heart did a little happy dance. We'd just been talking about her wedding in Paris. I'd already given her $30,000 to book things. I thought maybe she was sending pictures of a dress. I opened it with a smile. That smile died in 2 seconds. The email started with Mom. Not Dear Mom, just Mom, like I was a stranger. She explained that she, her fiancé Andrew, and his parents had finalized the guest list. They decided it would be best if I watched the ceremony via live stream. Andrew's mother wanted to keep things intimate. At the end, she wrote a line that cut deeper than any knife. If you want to be a part of it, you can watch through the Google Earth window, LOL. I sat there. My coffee went cold. I didn't cry. I just felt something inside me go very, very quiet. I typed back 4 words, sure, enjoy your big day. I hit send. Then I closed my laptop. That was the moment I stopped being the woman who always said yes. The quiet in my kitchen was louder than any noise. I finished my cold coffee. I got dressed for work, but my mind was somewhere else. It was flipping through a photo album of my life. Me, staying up late to finish sewing Emily's homecoming dress. Me, working double shifts to cover Luke's baseball camp. Me, eating peanut butter sandwiches for a week so Emily could have the latest calculator for school. I never kept a list of these things. That's what you do for your kids. You don't expect a thank you card for love. But this email, it wasn't just an invitation to watch a screen. It was a message. It said, you are no longer needed in the flesh. Your role is now observer. I drove to work through the Oregon drizzle. The world looked the same, but it was. I had just sent a reply that felt like dropping a stone into a deep, deep well. I knew the splash was coming. I just didn't know how big the waves would be. My boss, Robert, is a good man. He brought me a latte and set it on my desk. You look like you've seen a ghost, Margaret, he said. I almost told him. The words were right there. My daughter uninvited me from her wedding. But saying it out loud would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for, so I just smiled and said I had a bad night's sleep. He nodded and left me alone. That small kindness, him noticing, almost broke me. It was a reminder that I was a person, not just a function. A mother, a worker, a woman who took her coffee with 2 sugars. Around lunch, my phone started buzzing. Emily's name flashed on the screen, then a text. Mom, please answer, we need to talk. I watched the phone light up and go dark. I didn't pick it up. For the first time in 32 years, I let my daughter's call go to voicemail. It felt strange. It felt powerful. I took a sip of my latte and thought, maybe this is what it feels like to stop being on call. By the afternoon, the shock had worn off and a cold, clear plan had taken its place. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry and beg for an invitation. That's what they expected, the emotional mother causing a scene. I was going to be calm. I was going to be a stone. After work, I didn't turn left toward home. I turned right toward the bank. Carlos, the branch manager, knew me well. Mrs. Collins, what can I do for you? I sat down. My hands were steady. I need to cancel a wire transfer, the one to the venue in Paris. He looked surprised. That's a $50,000 transfer. Is everything all right? The circumstances have changed, I said, my voice flat. He checked his computer. You're in luck. It's still pending. I can stop it. He looked at me. Are you sure? I was more sure than I'd been about anything in a long time. I signed the papers. Just like that, $50,000 stayed in my account. Money that was meant for a wedding I was banned from attending. I walked out of that bank feeling lighter than air. The quiet didn't last. By the time I got home, my phone was a firework of missed calls and texts. 9 from Emily, 2 from my son, Luke. I played 1 voicemail. It was Emily's voice, sharp and frantic. Mom, please don't do this. Call me back. I deleted it. I went to the kitchen, opened a bottle of red wine I'd been saving, and took a glass out to the porch. The sunset was beautiful. I thought about Andrew's mother, a woman who met Emily 2 years ago. Her opinion on intimacy mattered more than my 3 decades of love. I thought about Emily typing LOL after telling me to watch on a screen. I finished my wine as the sky turned dark. The doorbell rang. It was Luke standing there in his work clothes, looking at me like I was a problem he had to solve. "Mom," Luke said, stepping inside without being asked. "Why aren't you answering your phone? Emily's freaking out." "Hello to you too, Luke," I said, closing the door. He started pacing my living room. "She says you're not coming to the wedding, that you're being difficult." I almost laughed. Difficult? I was disinvited. "You know how Andrew's parents are," he said, frustrated. "They're traditional. They're paying for most of it." "I've already paid $30,000, I said calmly, "and I was about to send $50,000 more. That's not tradition, Luke, that's being used." He stopped pacing. His face went white. "Wait, you were sending another 50? "I was," I said, "but not anymore." His shock turned to anger. "Mom, they're counting on that money, the venue, the caterer." I cut him off. "Not my problem anymore." "She's your daughter," he shouted. "And I'm her mother," I said, my voice quiet but like steel. "A mother who was told to stay home." He looked at me, really looked, and said the words that ended it. "You always make everything about yourself." The room went silent. "Get out of my house, Luke." He stared. "What?" "You heard me, get out." Luke left. The door clicked shut, a soft sound that echoed forever in my heart. I stood in the middle of the room, waiting for the guilt to crush me. It didn't come. Instead, I felt a surge of something else. It was relief. It was like I had been carrying a boulder on my back for 30 years, and I finally set it down. I was tired of being the bank, the planner, the emotional sponge, the person everyone expected to understand and sacrifice. That night, I slept a deep, dreamless sleep for the first time in years. I didn't dream of weddings or children or things I had to do. I just slept. When I woke up, the sun was shining. And my phone showed 43 missed calls. The calls and texts from Emily were a journey in themselves. They started with guilt. "Mom, we need to talk. Why are you doing this? This is childish." Then, as the morning wore on in Paris, they turned to panic. "The venue just called. The payment didn't go through. We're going to lose everything." Then came the blame. "Andrew's parents are furious. They said this proves they were right about you." The final text, sent in the dead of her night, read, "I don't understand why you're doing this to me." I read that one while buttering my toast. Of course she didn't understand. She had never had to understand. Her whole life, my support was just the weather, always there, expected, barely noticed until there was a storm. Well, now there was a storm, and I was the calm at the center of it. At work, I focused on my contracts. The chaos on my phone was a world away. Then, an email popped up. "Subject, please don't ruin my wedding." Emily wrote that they'd lost the venue deposit. The caterer would walk if not paid by end of day in Paris. "Andrew's parents are beyond upset," she wrote. Then came the line that showed me everything. "We can talk about you attending the ceremony, but we need the funds first." So there it was. My presence was now a bargaining chip. They would consider letting me come if I paid up. It wasn't an apology. It was a transaction. I closed the email. I didn't write back. My silence was my answer. Robert stopped by and asked me to lunch. For the first time in years, I said yes. Over lunch at the new Italian place, Robert talked about his grandkids. He was easy to talk to. He noticed I seemed different. "Forgive me, Margaret, but you seem lighter today." So I told him. I told him about the email, the live stream, the money, canceling the transfer. I expected pity or advice. He just listened. When I finished, he said, "Sometimes the hardest part of love is setting boundaries, especially with the people we've given the most to." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "I think you did the right thing. A stranger's kindness shouldn't mean more than your child's, but in that moment, it did. It validated the quiet revolution happening inside me. I went back to the office feeling stronger. The phone buzzed on my desk. I ignored it. My silence was no longer passive, it was a choice. That evening, I found Sophia, Emily's childhood best friend, sitting on my porch steps. She looked nervous. "Mrs. Collins, I'm sorry to drop by." I let her in and made tea. "Emily sent you?" I asked. Sophia nodded. "She's a mess. They lost the venue. The florist dropped out. Everything is falling apart." I listened, placing the mug in front of her. "Is there anything she can say to change your mind?" Sophia asked softly. I thought about it. Would a sorry fix it? Would it erase the sting of being replaced, of being told my physical presence was less important than a wealthy stranger's opinion? "No, Sophia," I said. "There is." I saw the disappointment in her young eyes. "Words are easy when people are desperate," I told her. "But love shouldn't be something you have to buy your way back into." Sophia hugged me before she left. She understood what her best friend did not. The fallout continued, but I was no longer in the blast zone. Luke called again, his tone colder. He said I was tearing the family apart. I told him the family had a crack running through it long before I decided to stop plastering over it. Emily resorted to sending long, emotional emails, mixing apologies with excuses. "You're overreacting," one said. "It was just about numbers," claimed another. I read them, but I didn't engage. I had said all I needed to say with my actions. I heard through the grapevine, a friend of a friend, that Andrew's parents were livid. They called me unstable, vindictive. I imagined them in their big house, scrambling to save face. It wasn't my concern. My concern was the pottery class I had signed up for that started on Thursday. My first pottery class was a disaster. My vase collapsed. My hands were covered in cold, slimy clay, and I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. The other women in the class, strangers all, laughed with me. There was no pressure to be perfect, to provide, to fix anything. It was just a messy, fun failure. Afterward, we went for coffee. They talked about books, bad movies, their annoying neighbors. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody asked me to sacrifice. For 2 hours, I was just Margaret. It was a revelation. This was what a life could be. It wasn't empty. It was full of small, quiet joys I had been too busy to notice. Emily's wedding day came and went. There was no grand ceremony in Paris. According to a very brief, stiff text from Luke, they had a small backyard ceremony at Andrew's parents' house weeks later. A handful of people. I was not invited. This time, the exclusion didn't hurt. It just felt like a confirmation. I spent that day deep cleaning my house, then treating myself to a long movie and a fancy takeout dinner I didn't have to share. I toasted myself with sparkling cider. "To peace," I said to the empty, clean, quiet house, and it felt like a celebration, not a consolation. A month passed. The storm had blown over, leaving a strange, calm landscape. I had more time. I had more money, my own money. I started small. I got a new haircut. I bought a comfortable chair for reading, something I'd always wanted but never allowed myself. I even went on a weekend trip to the coast with a couple of ladies from work. We ate seafood, walked on the beach, and talked about everything except our children. It was blissful. One afternoon, sorting through old boxes, I found a list I'd written in my 30s. Things I want to do: learn to garden, visit Seattle, read all of Jane Austen. I had done none of them. The list was stained with coffee and time. I smoothed it out and put it on my fridge. It was no longer a list of regrets. It was a to-do list. Of course, the past wasn't done with me. Emily sent one final email. It was long, pages of text. She talked about her stress, Andrew's family pressure, how she felt caught in the middle. There was an apology in there, buried under a mountain of justification. "I'm sorry you felt hurt," she wrote, "not I'm sorry I hurt you. There's a difference. I read it once. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a faint pity." She still didn't get it. She thought this was a fight we could make up from. She didn't realize it was an ending. I archived the email. I didn't reply. The chapter was closed. My relationship with Luke was frosty. He blamed me for ruining his sister's wedding. We didn't speak for weeks. Then one Sunday, he showed up unannounced again. He didn't look angry this time. He looked tired. "Can I come in?" he asked. I let him. He sat in the kitchen, the same spot he had as a teenager after a bad day. "She's miserable, Mom," he said. The wedding was awkward. "Andrew's parents treat her like she's a problem. Andrew just agrees with them." I listened. I made him a coffee. "I'm sorry she's unhappy," I said, and I meant it, but I also meant my next words. "I can't fix it for her, Luke. I spent my life fixing things. It didn't make anyone happier, especially not me." He was quiet for a long time. "I just don't get why you had to go nuclear," he mumbled. "I didn't go nuclear, son," I said softly. I just finally put down a weight I never should have been carrying alone. A breakthrough came from an unexpected place. My boss, Robert, retired. At his farewell party, he pulled me aside. "You know, Margaret," he said, "watching you this last month has been something. You walk taller." I thanked him. He handed me a small gift, a gift certificate to a nice restaurant. "For you," he said. "Not for you to take someone who needs something. For you to take yourself. It's an important date." I used it the following Friday. I went alone. I wore a nice dress. I ordered the steak and dessert. I read a book between courses. It was one of the best nights of my life. I was my own best company. I had forgotten how to enjoy that. 6 months after the email, my life looked completely different. My calendar had my things on it: book club, pottery, walks in the park. I had a small but real group of friends. Emily and I were in what I called a quiet pause. We exchanged brief, polite texts on birthdays. It was surface level, but it wasn't painful. It was just distant. One day, I was working in my fledgling garden when my neighbor, an older woman named Betty, came over. "You seem different, Margaret, happier." I wiped the dirt from my hands. I am, Betty. I think I finally retired from a job I never applied for. She laughed, understanding in her eyes. Motherhood? She asked. No, I said. The job of being everyone's everything. The financial freedom was a huge part of it. With the $50,000 I didn't send, plus the money I was no longer constantly handing out, I felt secure for the first time. I met with a financial advisor, a sharp woman named Linda. Your goal? She asked. I smiled. Peace of mind. We made a plan, a little for travel, a little for fun, a solid chunk for my future. It was my money for my life. It felt incredible. One afternoon, I drove past a used bookshop with a help wanted sign. On a whim, I went in. 2 days a week, I now work there. Not for the money, but for the joy. I spend my shifts surrounded by books, chatting with quiet customers. It's perfect. A year rolled around. The anniversary of the email, I didn't dwell on it. I marked the day by doing something I loved. I took a day trip to the mountains. As I stood looking at a vast, beautiful lake, my phone rang. It was Emily. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. Later, a text came through. Thinking of you today? It was simple. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a request. It was just a statement. Maybe it was the start of something new. Maybe not. I didn't overanalyze it. I texted back, "Thank you, I'm well." And then I put my phone away and watched the sunset paint the water gold. My story isn't about a grand, dramatic revenge where I ruined my daughter's life. It's quieter than that. My revenge was on my own old life. I took back my time, my money, and my peace. The consequence for Emily was that she learned her mother was a person, not a resource. She learned that unconditional love does not mean unconditional giving. She learned that respect is a two-way street. Did our relationship recover? Not in the way it was. That mother-daughter dynamic, where I was the giver and she was the taker, is gone. Something new might grow, but it will have to be between two adults. And that's okay. Luke started coming around more. He'd stop by for a coffee, talk about his job. We didn't talk about Emily much. One day, he was helping me move my new pottery creation, a lopsided but charming bowl, and he said, "You know, Mom, I think I get it now. A little." I didn't ask what he meant. I just nodded. That was enough. The understanding, however small, was a bridge. We were rebuilding slowly with new materials. Not the old bricks of guilt and obligation, but something stronger, mutual respect. Now I wake up and my first thought is, what do they need from me? It's what does the day hold? Sometimes it's work. Sometimes it's coffee with a friend. Sometimes it's absolutely nothing, and that nothing feels rich and full. I learned the most valuable lesson: you cannot pour from an empty cup. For decades, I let everyone drink from mine until it was dry and cracked. Now I fill my own cup first. And guess what? There's plenty left over for those who approach with kindness, not just with an empty hand. So that's the story, the revenge of the quiet mother. It wasn't in screaming or legal battles. It was in 4 words in an email reply. It was in a canceled wire transfer. It was in a closed door. It was in choosing myself. If you're out there, giving until you have nothing left for the person in the mirror, hear this: it's never too late to change the story. You don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. Sometimes, the strongest, most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away from the fire and build a hearth of your own. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 60 years old now, and for the first time in a long time, my life is my own.